Hello all, Rick here once more with a video on Sol 4, or Mars, in Star Trek, looking at its long history and important role within the fiction of that universe. Terraforming Mars has been a dream since the earliest ideas of space exploration from Earth, and plans were constructed based on the premise of someday making this a reality. Space agencies had long been sending probes to both perform flybys and landings on the Red Planet to learn of it, but as early as 2032 the first manned missions were undertaken. This was 8 years after the first successful manned mission to the Jovian moons of Europa and Io. Ares 4 saw a team of John Kelly, Rose Kumagawa, and Andrei Novakovich of the International Space Agency land 2 scientists on the surface of the planet in order to take crust samples while Kelly remained in orbit. The mission would end in failure, as a graviton ellipse emerged from subspace, then a completely unknown realm, let alone the phenomena, and swallowed the Ares 4 orbital module, trapping Kelly and marooning the 2 scientists on the planet. They were able to survive the 2 weeks it took a second ship to rescue them. Despite this, the desire to set foot on Mars was not dimmed, and here is where we need some further context and tidying up of the lore. In 2063, Zephram Cochrane's first flight of the Phoenix gained the attention of the passing Vulcan ship the Taplana Hath, and, following protocol, they introduced themselves to the pilot. In the following years, Earth united under the banner of realizing they were not alone in the universe, and the Vulcans assisted in the development of select technologies, such as medicine and terraforming. The introduction of Vulcan knowledge brought forwards estimates of the colonization of Mars, and some sources indicate that it was as soon as 2069 that Utopia Planitia was founded. Well, this conflicts with the initial colony dates of 2103, cited by multiple other sources, and the later date seems more likely. However, there could be reasons for this, such as 2069 being when the construction or automation of certain structural fabrications began, and civilian life began to settle in earnest in 2103. Either way, it's one of those Trek inconsistencies that state Utopia Planitia was founded in 2069, while colonization began in 2103 at the Nova Ares in the same area. What is certain is that the initial colony sites were structural domes, and that while terraforming had begun, the surface of Mars was far from habitable. These domed cities had Earth-normal gravity, air, and imported water, as well as extracted ice from Mars itself, while jaunts to the surface still required environmental suits. While an atmosphere was forming, ultraviolet light was still an issue, and the surface temperature was below tolerable levels for a human. The lure of Mars, however, attracted numerous settlers and other peoples that wanted to step away from Earth for whatever reasons. Several of these included the descendants of augments from the eugenics wars, and those who wished to live outside of the United Earth government. In 2109, this included several Native American tribes who went on to found their own government and organisations. However, soon there was discourse on what exactly a Martian government should look like, including notions of the level of involvement Earth should have in its growth. This culminated in the brief Martian War of Independence, the conclusion of which saw the drafting of the fundamental declarations of the Martian colonies. This was a pivotal document that confirmed and provided the framework for future colonies of Earth, and later the UFP. It codified certain rights to individuality and governance, and the relations that Earth would have to her colony worlds, a necessary political step for a growing interstellar power. Over the next few years, air and atmosphere were established to a level of enough that humans could walk on the Martian surface for some time, but the global temperature was still comparable to that of the Arctic, and radiation exposure was still an issue. By 2147, The Verteron array was established on the planet's surface in order to bring comets down on the ice caps of Mars to aid in terraforming, creating more water vapour for the planet. This was the subject of a hijacking by the xenophobic group Terra Prime when they relocated the Orpheus mining complex of Luna to Mars in an attempt to attack Starfleet headquarters in 2155. On the surface, alongside the oldest settlements like Utopia Planitia, which housed Mars City Station, other domed cities emerged, connected by tramlines and transportation framework. In time, one of these cities became the capital, Ares City, and the government was the Confederation of Martian Colonies, which oversaw the Assembly, Council and Parliament of Mars. While a staunch ally of Earth, it was not, however, a signing member of the Coalition, and in fact never signed it. During the Romulan War, they decided to refrain from joining the Coalition, as Mars was in no state to defend itself, lest it become a target by the Romulans. After the founding of the United Federation of Planets, however, Mars joined quickly, and Utopia Planitia was dedicated to be the major shipyard of the organisation, moving it away from San Francisco fleet yards, and this would become Mars's focus and primary association for the next few centuries. Almost its entire civilian sector was associated with this industry, but this is not entirely accurate. In the same way, most look at Earth as the Starfleet planet, because it's where the Academy and headquarters are located. Mars became the shipbuilding one. In truth, Mars continued to develop as a planet in its own right, its population growing to almost 133 million, and a variety of locations sprang up. Terraforming continued, and the liquid water began to pool into crater lakes, and the cities continued to expand. Now, these cities were established in circular formations, many miles across and visible from space, built onto the bones and infrastructure of the older domed cities, giving it a very distinguishable look, remnant of a lunar colony, despite the planet eventually being adjusted enough to be officially designated as a Class M planet, and domed cities no longer being needed. One thing that Mars continues to grapple with, however, is the fact that their soil is not great for cultivation, so the majority of the planet's surface is still barren rock. Generally, farmland is still within the borders of these city superstructures, or underground. Mars would continue to grow and engage in trade with several space ports opening on the planet, such as Olympus Mons, which also saw the location of quarries, resorts, and, as a fun little fact, its peak at 21.9 kilometres was outside of the artificial gravity field generated to simulate Earth gravity. Starfleet opened several offices on Mars, and installations such as the Technical Services Academy, among others, and the Daystrom Institute had a warp specialist annex and a university there. As you can see, many of these installations do indeed involve the primary occupation of Mars, ship construction, but it was also a popular tourist destination. Many vessels were constructed here, such as the Galaxy-class project in Enterprise in 2363, the Defiant in 2366, and Voyager in 2371. Naturally, this fame and dedication to the Federation made it a priority target from Federation enemies, but located as it was within the Sol system, it was seldom a target for attack. Nevertheless, the Dominion War and Borg threats resulted in the beefing up of Mars's defensive perimeter, considering its initial line of defense was a single squadron of small ships. An automated perimeter of phaser satellites was installed and would remain in place until 2385, when conspiracy struck. The biggest project Mars had ever undertaken was helmed by Admiral Jean-Luc Picard and overseen by Commander Geordie LaForge, which saw the rapid construction of a fleet of Wallenberg-class evacuation ships, all to assist in the Romulan relocation effort. This came with several challenges and setbacks, documented and linked here, so feel free to peruse those two videos if you are interested, and thank you. But ultimately, the effort was undermined by the Tal Shiar, or more specifically, a Zatvash internal cult to the Tal Shiar, which turned the network on Mars itself and also hacked into the automaton synthetics that made up the construction force. That attack resulted in 92,143 killed, and just as devastatingly, stratospheric vapours ignited in the atmosphere, as well as the bombardment of infrastructure. This resulted in the planet being declared unfit for inhabitation even into 2399, due to the burning atmosphere still in places. We do not know the fate of Mars on screen, although the likelihood is that the planet would be recoverable, and efforts made to restore it, as is the case in Star Trek Online. Not only is it such an important location to the Federation, but it's also a historic site for Earth. While not a founding member, it was instrumental in the development of UFP colonization rights, as well as supply and trade to its member worlds, making it one of the most treasured planets at the core of the UFP. Mars pretty much got along with Earth in Star Trek, and it was seen as an effort to get terraforming and colonization right, even as newer M-class worlds were found, such as Terra Nova. Everything that made Mars habitable was artificial, from the gravity field that extended a few miles above the surface to the pumped-out atmosphere. I do wonder how artificial gravity is maintained and what powers it, as this is also what keeps the atmosphere from dissipating. It would be nice to see a greener Mars, but with the creation of replicators, natural farmland becomes less of a priority. We seldom see anything outside of Utopia Planitia either, because, from a Starfleet point of view, that is the most important thing on the Red Planet. Thanks for watching this breakdown on Mars. I've been Rick, and I'll see you later for another lore video, so until that one, thanks once more, and goodbye.